So hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar called Beyond the Data, the 2026 Strategy Trends. I'm your host, Ted Jackson. I'm one of the founders here at ClearPoint, and today we have a great panel of guests. Let me introduce them. So Rob Howie's, at least at the top of my screen, he is the Senior Strategic Relationship Manager at Harvard Business Impact, the corporate learning division of Harvard Business Publishing. He was co-founder at Palladium Group and Balanced Scorecard Collaborative, where he served as president. He served as CMO of ICON PLC, one of the world's clinical research organizations, managing director of C-Space, Omnicron's customer agency, and vice president of the Yankee Group, market research firm. So welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Good to be here with you, Ted.
I have Daniel O'Mara next on my screen, at least. Daniel's the president of the International Association for Strategy Professionals and a senior leader at the Bank of Uganda, where he focuses on strategy development, organizational performance, long-term institutional resilience. Daniel's recognized for his ability to translate complex policy environments into clear, actionable strategic priorities and for advancing the professionalization of strategy as a global discipline. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks a lot, Ted, and thanks for having me here.
Yes, and Laura Downing next. Laura is the CEO of Clear Strategy Consulting, which works with leaders to increase their effectiveness as they implement their strategy and as they lead their teams and grow as leaders. Laura is also co-author of 12 Skills, the Guide to Becoming a Stronger Leader and Accelerating Your Career, and one of the original Balanced Scorecard practitioners. In full disclosure, original founder of Ascendant, who we call ClearPoint Strategy today. For those of you participating, you should please use the chat. I will see as we get to the first question, I'll see if I can find a phone number to send to you if your audio is not working. But otherwise, please just introduce yourself. We're going to use this public chat for Q&A as well, just to make it as chaotic as we can. So please chime in with where you are and any questions that you have. I am now going to share my screen. I should have shared it before because I do have some slides, but y'all have seen Rob and Laura and Daniel, and there is a chance we will get Matthias, who's trying to join us from another meeting as well. But I wanted to talk about the strategy planning report itself. And just move my little screen sharing around. And Laura was alluding to this as we were getting started, but we anonymized information from more than 20,000 strategic plans over 8 years to create this data set. So it has more than 100,000 objectives, 300,000 measures, 130,000 projects. Don't worry, we're not going to be going through all of the data today, but we're going to go through some of the information and get you, our panel's thoughts and reactions to the information. Would love for y'all to react openly and candidly. So if you think something looks off or we should dig deeper, let's get that out in the open. And without further ado, let's push through this. You can probably see this is 48 pages. Don't worry, again, not going to go through all of the pages. But I thought I would just jump into the first kind of piece of data here, which is what is in a typical plan. So from our survey, we show that the median number of elements would be 5 goals, 9 measures, 8 projects with 17 milestones associated with those projects. So let me just start here by defining a plan. So for a small organization, this could be the entire strategy, but for a bigger organization who has a different plan for each department, so if they have 20 departments, they would have 21 plans. So the 20 departments plus the enterprise. So to you, Daniel, Laura, Rob, kind of what's your experience with these number of elements that you see? Does this look, in the range of something typical in your world?
I guess I'll jump in and I'll say I find these numbers surprisingly tight. I find the 598. I find that a little low, and I'll be honest. I wish that was what it were. So, certainly when you go corporate, when you have a higher level scorecard, they tend to be a little narrower because they're broader in scope and they're making room for their business units and stuff. But gosh, they don't want to keep it pared down, right? It sort of gets away with them. They want to make sure everybody sees themselves and everybody sees the part. So they tend to get bigger and have too many objectives and certainly too many measures. And then in time, I think, Ted, you've probably seen this too. In time, they find that it's too much and they pare it back. So maybe these people are just super experienced and they've pared their way back to some reasonable numbers, because I love seeing the 59817 numbers.
Rob, Daniel, any?
Yeah, I'll jump into that's an interesting point of view, Laura, particularly I think with larger organizations. But what struck me about the data is its consistency with the smaller or mid-sized organizations that I've been privileged to work with, regardless of size or industry. The median plan, what did you say? 5 goals, 9 measures, 8 projects, 17 milestones, reflects in a small organization what you might call the natural carrying capacity of the leadership team. And I think when leaders try to manage more than that, execution quality, might drop. In most organizations I've seen, the variance isn't driven by ambition, it's driven by structure. So small organizations may indeed have one enterprise-wide strategy, and large enterprises often run, as you said, Ted, multiple departmental strategies nested under some corporate plan, but the sweet spot for a plan doesn't change much. I would say that whether it's a marketing department or a finance department or an entire enterprise, the data shows that the human bandwidth to focus on a critical few for real execution doesn't change a lot. And the most successful teams that I've seen live close to the median footprint, and the least successful teams drift far from it. A lot of initiatives, a lot of things to manage doesn't necessarily support good management. Focus is our friend.
Yeah, and I think if I may weigh in, I agree with Robin and Laura. My experiences during the formulation process, strategy formulation process, there's always a high appetite for many goals, many projects, and when it comes to the projects, every senior executive would like to see their presence, their business, their function represented in the strategic plan, and that is one way of leading to several projects. At the Central Bank of Uganda, where I work, we have 9 goals and about 52 projects. You can imagine this grew from 48 to 52, and you have about 32 performance measures. And that may sound small or fair enough for the size of the organization. We are over 1,000 employees. But the National Development Plan, which is the strategic plan for the country, Uganda, the previous one had over 2,000 performance measures. And I said, what are we measuring here? What's important? I mean, if you recall, Rob, from the balanced scorecard, highlight the critical or vital few measures than looking at the trivial many. And so I was really taken aback by the number of measures at the national level. Yeah, it's country, but 2,000 measures. Then I think there's no priority on what we want to measure. So it depends on the size of the organization. In my view, if we kept them to 5 goals, 9 measures, 8 projects, 17 milestones, and you have a fairly small organization, that would be smart. That would be really great. I saw only one larger organization, His Majesty's Revenue and Customs in the United Kingdom. They had 4 goals, and they're present in across the United Kingdom with 64,000 employees, but only had 4 major goals, and they were just about 16 projects, the multi-year projects. So it depends on the size, but from my perspective, the smaller is always best, depending on the size of the institution.
Yeah, and I think there's something to this ability to drill down from your plan, right? So even if you have a limited number of measures at the enterprise level, you can have more at the department level so that you could get the detail that you need at the appropriate level of your organization. And for our data, we've called that different plans, even though some organizations might view like a single integrated plan, because as you said, Daniel, I'm kind of stunned at the idea of reviewing 1,000 measures. But if you can do it with 100 departments, then you have, only 10 measures per department. So it's not so bad. So one of the interesting things, I'll do this just for this piece of data before we jump to the next one, is one of the things that we saw were plans with fewer than 20 elements total saw success almost 70% of the time, compared to plans with 60 or more elements total, barely seeing any success. And that's thinking about this idea of, at a particular level, whether I had 4 objectives, as you said in your UK example, then I only have 15 items left. How am I going to divide those up amongst my measures and my projects? Because I think, Laura, you alluded to it, like this is really all you can kind of keep in your head and have for an effective meeting and kind of draw the connections between to really drive success. And we've defined success here as regular status updates, regular analysis, actually beginning to kind of achieve your goals as well, compared to those with 60 or more might be in there, not regularly updated, a lot of red, or even, in the world we use is blue, or another icon that says, hey, this isn't even started yet. Like it's almost a brainstorming platform, if that makes sense. So let's jump ahead a little bit. And this report, by the way, is free and fully downloadable. So I'm just going page by page just so y'all can get a sense of what's in it. But if we jump ahead to kind of page 8 in the report, we've seen an interesting thing with the number of projects that show up in a plan. And this, again, the median and the average. So you could choose how you want to look at this. But either way, they're both going up kind of since COVID, really. And so just curious if y'all just in either researching or talking to your clients or looking at other organizations, you've seen something similar where, plans are becoming even more project focused than they have been in the past. What did you think when you saw this data?
So from my perspective, again, using the central bank, at the time of the pandemic, we decided from the strategy office that we've got to review our strategic plan. It wasn't realistic that would remain static, yet everything was working against us. So in terms of the environment and the operational factors. So we conducted an assessment to see the impact of the COVID pandemic, on the central bank's operations. So at that time, we had about 45 projects. Our plan then, and recommendation to top management, was reduce the projects to at least 13. Management decided no, it should be at least about 15, based on the core projects that support the central bank. But over time, that increased. I just said we now have 52 projects. So what I have seen is that many organizations also decided to reduce their time horizon for their strategic plans. And some school of thought is like, we can't have a strategic plan which runs for 5 years. That's such a long time. What if another pandemic happened? Why would we remain static? So most organizations want to see more shorter-term strategic plans with a number of projects in there that could be completed within a shorter time. So I think the greater impact that COVID brought around was so many things are changing within a very short time. And so we've got to prepare as organizations to ensure that what we did not have during the COVID pandemic, we should have in case there is another scenario of that nature. So at the central bank, we increased the number of our projects based on the way the impact was on our operations. We never had a work from home policy, for example. Now, when we introduced the work from home policy, that brought in so many demands. We had to increase the number of work tools like laptop computers. And actually at the central bank, we're so used to the desktop computers, but now we have laptop computers to all staff, and we're talking about over 1,000 staff employees. So that brings in so much IT need and accessories, and that increases budget, of course, licenses, and many other things. So I think the operational environment occasioned by the pandemic has given more appetite to many more projects with many institutions.
Yeah, I think Daniel's right, and I'm looking at some of the questions. Do you lose your strategy when COVID happens? And I think it's such an interesting question because, first of all, you see the data, we can't argue with them. Like that's really compelling. And I think when we were really in it, it wasn't that anybody lost their strategy. It was that we all had to kind of wake up in the morning and say, what are we going to do, right? And some organizations said, let's wait it out. Whatever this thing is, let's wait it out. The great organization said, okay, it's as if we have a timeout. Let's start doing the things that we haven't gotten done. And I think that's why you see so many projects is let's get the stuff done, right? And then eventually we got more of a strategic look. But in my experience certainly in the first year of COVID, there weren't many organizations sort of driving their strategy because we just didn't know, right? But instead, they knew there were the operational things that could give them a strategic boost when it was time. So that was kind of my experience. But if you look, your data, a 50% increase, again, those are facts, and they're still growing post-COVID. So I think Daniel's onto something, that it's created an appetite for the doing part of planning.
Yeah, but I would say this was not a surprise to me at all, and for all the reasons Laura and Daniel have mentioned. As I think about it, there are a couple of forces driving this explosion, beside the fact that the clock speed of business has doubled or tripled in the last few years. I think that COVID proved that larger organizations could move fast when they had to. They built a lot of new digital capabilities, made customer experiences, obviously new operating models given COVID, and they often did it faster. Decision making may have been more concentrated with people scattered. And that accelerated mindset didn't disappear after the crisis. I think it became in many ways a new expectation. The second thing that occurs to me is leaders are now translating strategy into more concrete, trackable work. and that increase in projects and the milestones suggests to me a push toward more, perhaps you could say, execution rigor. Organizations are saying if we want results, we need to break strategy down into manageable pieces that people can see and they can sequence and they can own. In every sector, there's more pressure to demonstrate progress, not just intent. So to me, the growth in projects really is a signal of, you could say, maturity. I think strategy execution is becoming more operational, more measurable, more accountable.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Daniel, one other thing that you said that I picked up on was the idea of leaving your 5-year plan and going down to a shorter plan. We don't have the data on that in this round of analysis, but we've certainly seen it with our clients. And if you think about this particular 5-year window, right, where we've had COVID, the introduction of AI, and then at least on the U.S. side of the world, the introduction of tariffs, which has caused just disruption, right? I won't say positive or negative, but just a certain amount of uncertainty that is just if your 5-year plan started the day before, in February of 2020, you wouldn't have seen any of this stuff coming. And so it's we're certainly seeing some faster or some shorter length of time, 3-year plans, 1-year plans, or 3 years with a lot of re-looking at stuff. I'm going to jump ahead a little more. Some of these talk about a lot of the data by industries, which are really interesting, but for now, I'm trying to get us up ahead a little more. I'm going to stop here, which is looking at projects, right? So we were looking at that explosion of projects, and then we saw, a real compression of project lengths. This is start and end date of your projects. And if we looked kind of back in 2017 to 2019, and then from 2022 on, the projects were more or less a year long. So you think, I'm doing my strategic plan, we're going to do these 6 or 7 projects, and we're going to do them before the end of the year. So just kind of a real, no matter when your fiscal year starts and ends. And then we see kind of during the 2 COVID years, I'm calling it, the project length was cut in half. They were 6-month projects, right? Did y'all see something similar? Does my kind of quick, this is COVID, does that make sense from your perspective?
I think it does. I think, we were all kind of waiting to see what was around the corner. All we knew was we were blind as to what was around the corner. So I think everybody was just kind of, let's get the chunks done, as we just discussed.
Yeah, I think that's right. Laura. This is a good example, I think, looking at this data of necessity producing perhaps more discipline. When the pandemic hit, organizations didn't have any choice but to shorten cycles, make decisions faster, perhaps with fewer people, eliminating bureaucracy. And timelines weren't compressed because leaders suddenly became more efficient or better. They compressed because the environment perhaps removes the option to delay. I think, to me, the more important insight is what happened afterwards. As soon as the crisis eased, I can't remember exactly when that was, what year that was, but project durations drifted back toward a full year, because we do often plan in full years, so that kind of makes sense to me. But it does suggest that the short timelines weren't because leaders suddenly discovered a better way of working. They were the byproduct of urgency, not structure. So the lesson may be that organizations can move at speed, but it requires intentional operating models, not just a burning platform.
Yeah, so in my view, when your house is on fire, you take quick decisions, right? save some things, save some items. But when you're on a normal day, I mean, even things that you should fix now, you can say, well, I still have time. I can fix this tomorrow. Okay. So I'm not surprised, with this data. But from my perspective, I think this is a behavior of organizations being more reactive than more strategic, like I think Rob tried to allude to. So it would be important for organizations to be more proactive and look ahead and have a set of plans in place to manage the future that could be unknown, rather than being reactionary, because reactionary is just a stopgap measure, but doesn't leave you any better if you face the same challenge again.
Yeah, I'm also picturing the Bank of Uganda getting 1,000 laptops out to everyone. You don't have a year to do that. It's definitely reactionary, right? I'm going to push us ahead just because the data went to a lot of different places. So this one I'm going to explain a little bit because it's an interesting chart. On the left side, the darker orange is owners, and the lighter orange is collaborators. And we broke this down by industry and by plans, right? So what we're seeing here is, on average, 2 to 5 people, like 1.8 to 4.8, 2 to 5 people owning a plan, with another 8 to 17 people contributing to that plan overall, right? So think about a department might have a couple of people that are heavily in charge of strategy, with another reach to 10 people, that are helping them execute on that plan. Anything that you saw in that? Was this surprising data or confirming data for when you think about organizations that you've worked with or you've written about or studied?
To me, the most surprising one is the government. I mean, I'd like to hear from Daniel on this, because I think those numbers are pretty low for government. I usually see them a little more dispersed. So I wonder if that's your experience too, Daniel.
Yeah, so with governments, the case, for example, is Uganda's. If you refer to the National Development Plan, the previous one, National Development Plan version 3, it ended with a performance of about 37% only. And that was absolutely very low. And well, for me, I think main issue was, one, it's just so many projects that were, included in the plan. You have so many performance measures, and you can fail to track exactly what matters for you to track. And the behavior of, government employees. Your house is not on fire, so why the rush? But that has to change. That has to change, because in most institutions, especially in government, the sense of urgency is quite low, and for you to run a project, complete it within 364 days is a big challenge. But in more private institutions, there is always a sense of urgency, and everybody's on their toes to get work done and completed, and that gets things moving. So I'm really not surprised by this kind of data set from the government perspective.
I wasn't surprised by the number of people involved. 10 to 20 per plan feels about right. But what struck me was the distribution of the ownership. So the data shows that while plenty of people are involved, very few are actually accountable, right? And what are the numbers? 74% of goals, 71% of measures, 86 of assigned owners, when they haven't updated anything in 90 days, we're not talking about an execution gap. We're talking about an accountability gap. And we've known for a long time, those of us who've done work in this area, that every element of the strategy should have, one throat to choke, as we say, one name next to it, not a committee, not a department, one owner. And I think if organizations simply improve the ownership discipline, overall execution would rise dramatically.
Yeah, I think that's a good insight. I've looked at some of the other data sets as y'all have compared to this. And if I just look at these first two, like in education, an earlier data set says they have like way more objectives and measures, and they seem to have fewer reporters, right? Fewer people involved, whereas the energy and utilities has more focused plans. So there are fewer elements with a lot more people involved. And so I look at this and I can only think, like in education, they're just reporting. They're not necessarily thinking about and talking about strategy. They have a few number of people that are just, you're responsible for 6 or 7 or 10 pieces of data that you're reporting, versus in energy and utilities, which has a very high strategy execution rate as well. They actually have a lot more people involved in doing things and like kind of taking action overall. So that was a little bit of my takeaway. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to push us again a little deeper into this report. You can see there's some insights and some different areas in here. So I think, I encourage everyone to download it and look at it in detail. But this is, one of the things that Rob Howie has talked a lot to me about from the first time I met him was, 9 out of 10 organizations fail to execute strategy, right? And we talked about this when we were together at Balanced Scorecard Collaborative and, with Drs. Norton and Kaplan. And there's always people asking questions like, prove it, show it to me, that it's really there. Where did that data come from? And so when we did this report, we were like, well, let's see if that's in there, right? And so when we look at kind of high performers and even middle performers, these are organizations executing on their strategy, right? Their average completion rates. If you look down here at the percent of plans, add these two numbers together, it's like 10% of plans are being executed and 90% are at the low end or the very low end of the scale, right? And so there's no way this is a surprise to you, Rob, but just curious about kind of other reactions to see that 9 out of 10 organizations are failing to execute their plans.
Well, your data set makes that real, Ted. That famous quote, 9 out of 10, struck me. This is not surprising, but it's a reminder of how costly this is, right? So much failure, so little success, and the data shows that. The top 5 to 10% are executing what? I think you said 60 to 90% of the priorities, but the vast majority finish only a fraction of that. To me, this is not a capability problem. To me, it's a focus and discipline problem. The organizations that execute aren't necessarily smarter or better resource. I think they simply may have fewer priorities, a clearer sense of ownership, perhaps a tighter cadence, discipline around the cadence, the meeting cadence. Execution excellence isn't mysterious. The high performers show us that the gap is fixable. Your data shows that.
Yeah, and I think, I want to remind people this doesn't mean 9 out of 10 organizations fail, right? It's just they fail to meet their goals.
Right.
And when I look at it, some of it, it's like you can create a strategic plan, of our data set, 10 out of 10 have a plan, but it's 9 out of 10 are either, ignoring the plan or not reporting on it or don't have one neck to strangle. I love that. One neck to choke. What did you say, Rob? But are not necessarily. They might be focused on their tactics, their operations, their day-to-day work. So Laura, you and Daniel, I'm going to take the question from the chat and pose it to you. Is like, why do you think there's this kind of low performance that we see?
Yeah, I think Rob named it, right? It's an execution problem, and that's just pure and simple. But it would be fun to really tear the data apart. But I think you pulled out some best practices, right? Fewer number of elements is better, right? More reporting is better. A team that's right-sized for the size of the plan is better. And it turns out, in a way that's surprising, probably for most of us that have bothered to be on this, or even listen to this meeting later, is, to use Daniel's term, when your house is not on fire, strategy falls aside. It falls away, right? So to have people really focus on their strategy, have real throats to choke, as Rob puts it, and to have it be part of people's day job is what it takes to make strategy happen. You can't do it once a year or once every 5 years and put it on a shelf. It really has to, this reporting cycle and continuous learning, that's what makes the difference. I mean, I think that's why some succeed and some fail. When I look at the super low, 1.5%, I think you've got a strategy problem there. I think their strategies are wrong. But yeah, the winners, I'm telling you, it's because they execute and they focus on their strategy continually.
Yeah, I think you both right, Laura and Rob. So I run half marathon at least, right? And my typical day when I'm going to run, I could plan today I want to run, an extra 3-4 kilometers. Yeah, in terms of kilometers. I know you're used to miles, something like that. So at the time of planning, it's very easy and it looks so easy to achieve it. But when I hit the road, halfway, my target, I begin to ask myself, but why should I do this, right? What's the point? So the question is a behavioral problem that, affects or influences execution. So at the time of formulating our strategies, we have, everything seems to be good, high priority. Everything is able to be done, to be executed. But when the truth comes on the stage, in terms of execution, then we meet challenges. And so for me, the question is the behaviors, the discipline that Rob talked about, should start from the planning stage at the time of formulation. Do not take on projects that ideally you cannot execute within your time horizon. And not everything that you think or your gut feeling believes should be on the plan, because suddenly that leads to a failure when you actually begin execution. So it requires heavy amounts of change management from the strategy experts from the time of formulation, execution, up to the end. That then could influence the level of execution rate. At the central bank, we just took an evaluation last year. So our 5-year strategic plan at that time was only 19% success rate. And we're in the 3rd year at that time. We're in the 4th year. I have seen the report. It's not much improvement. So meaning if we project to the end of the strategic plan, June 2027, it's likely that we will not complete all our projects. And that comes to behavior, because during the strategy review, a lot of senior management kept increasing projects, kept proposing projects, and they overpowered the discussion room and had their projects included. So there has to be discipline, right, from formulation to execution. And that way we can see, better data set perhaps when you do another survey in future.
Yeah, excellent. All right, one more question, and then we'll wrap up. I know I'm borrowing a lot of y'all's time, and I appreciate that as well. So we looked at the RAG statuses, right? The red, amber, green, right? And this chart's showing of all the elements. So it's all of my objectives, measures, and initiatives kind of averaged up together. And it's saying 40% of them are green, and then the other 60% are kind of either, yellow, red. And then inside of our data set, we have a blue, which is not started. And then people can create their own custom fields. And so if they weren't clearly like a red, yellow, or green, that's what that unclear is, just from the data. So I look at this and say, hey, 40% green is great. But then I'm like, oh, but 60% not green is bad. So when you saw this, like, did you think kind of targets were too high or performance is too low? Like, how did you react to this data when you first saw it?
To be honest, my first reaction was this looks like portfolios with maybe too many competing commitments. When only 40% of elements are green, 20% are red, it suggests that perhaps to me that the targets may be unrealistic, or the organization doesn't have the capacity to deliver against the commitments they've made. But there is another way to think about this. This is what transparent strategy looks like, right? If everything is green, something's wrong. Strategy is about stretching the organization, right? Not reporting perfection. So I don't think the targets are too high. I think the portfolios may be too large. I think
good.
Once organizations narrow their focus, and as we talked about earlier, assigning real owners, usually, I think if I recall, green percentages rise without perhaps lowering the ambition the organization has.
No, great.
It is possible. I'm not sure about this data, right? Because unless you can clarify it, Ted, unless this is kind of year end or period end or plan end, I'm not sure we should be quick to judge, right? Because it might be a yellow along the way to a green, right? So if this is mid-plan, it could just be execution taking the time that it's supposed to. We might even have known that it would be yellow for this period of time. So I'm not really sure, but if there's a major concern on this page, it has to be the almost 25% of not started or unclear, right? Which gets back to Rob's point about it being too much. Like, if you're going to go through this process, remember, these are plans that you've seen. If you're going to go through this process of documenting and putting it online and reporting in a full quarter, you still can't see. No matter what the maturity of the plan, that's the real watch out to me.
And Daniel made this point as well, Laura. I think that's an excellent point you made. But to put things that aren't started or unclear on the map is just to cause people to be demoralized if we don't get to them. So again, focus is our friend, less is more. Don't put things on there that you don't have the resources, the time to get done.
Yeah. My biggest surprise with this data set, Ted, is the unclear, or 8.32%. Why would you have a project which is unclear what we're thinking about at the time of formulation? So I would really be, set back with something that is not clear. A strategy should have clear projects, should have clear measures, and everybody should know where the direction the organization is taking. So if you have this kind of elements in your strategy, then certainly don't expect good results. What may not surprise me is, I think Rob has said, talk to this again, the green, yellow, red, right? My question is to you, Ted, the not started 14.8%, I could say, well, probably at the time it took this assessment, these projects were not yet meant to start. So is it that their time of starting is not yet due, or is it that they have overlapped their time of execution? That has to be clear. Otherwise, I would not be really very surprised by not started if I understand the planned start date and end date.
No, good questions. And I'll have to, go back to our data analysts and say, hey, look at this in more detail. Because you're right. If someone puts a project on their plan that it's not supposed to start for 6 months, those first 6 months, they shouldn't get penalized for it at all. Okay, let me wrap up here, and then I will leave y'all with a few thoughts. As you can see, we have lots of different angles we can take with this data, but I'm sure we'll be looking for more as well, right? But this was kind of stated, throughout. I heard, Laura and Daniel and Rob all say, like, some of these pointers, some of the things you can do to see success are not that hard, right? So I think the data shows there's a lot of opportunity to improve, right? Some of the changes are easy, like focusing on the critical few things, right sizing your portfolio, having true ownership in your organization, and then being systematic about performance improvement, right? So overall, I'm really excited about this first round of information because, people will say strategy is an art.
Lost Ted. Okay. Ted, you're mute.
Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen.
Strategy is an art, is where you just
right.
left us hanging.
Where I left you hanging. People say that it's an art, but I think you can also, look at the data and find some rules and principles that can make it much more like a science where you can start to really drive results, right? And so for us, as we get into 2026, we'll be adding more data from 2025. So, and then looking at cutting that data in different ways. So I will just not only thank our panelists, but just ask y'all one kind of final thing, like, what else would you like to see if we take another stab at this data when we get more of it for this next year? What were some things that left you wanting that we could potentially tease out of the data? I already got the one from, like, let's make sure these unclear status indicators or start dates maybe don't muck up, some of our blue and, some of our status reporting. But what else did you see that you'd love to see, or what did the data leave you wanting?
Go ahead.
Like I said, when I read through the report, which by the way is superb, and your conclusions that you just quickly glossed over about what to do, and it very succinct and very powerful. I think it's great. To me, however, there's three things that I had in my mind when I got to the end. And the first one was link. What's the link between leadership behavior and execution quality? We can see the impact of ownership, but I'd like to correlate execution performance with things like leadership, commitment, engagement, all that sort of thing. The second one is there any relationship between plan size and culture? Do organizations with an agile, adaptive culture naturally build better, faster, smarter, smaller, more focused plans? And kind of related to that is the AI question. Is AI's emerging impact on strategy execution? Is that going to automate reporting and forecasting? Like to understand whether that shifts ownership patterns, the velocity of projects, or even completion rates. What impact is AI going to have on all this?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I would say first of all, thank you to ClearPoint for doing this study. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy, and I think it's really super valuable. So thank you for doing that, and I look forward to continuing to learn as you work through this. I loved Rob's questions, and I think the only other thing I would add to it is if we could get a slice of sort of the maturity process, because as I put myself in the shoes of anybody getting started on great strategic planning, you do have to experience it. It does kind of take 2 or 3 years, and so maybe we could paint that path for them a little bit, that all is not lost if you've got too many reds or not enough people or too many objectives, right? Year 1, you're going to kind of have a mess. Year 2, so I think the more we can teach them that the maturity process is real would be valuable.
Yeah, I love these questions, especially when, Rob talked about culture, the influence of culture on execution. I would expand that, in my view, to the environment. It could be that there is a correlation between the natural environment, the operational environment that companies, institutions operate in, to the success or no success of their strategies. So is there something like that? Does it make sense? Leadership, of course, is very critical, but if we can look at the environmental impact where these institutions operate, would that make sense? The other aspect is, could we see behavior of our executives at the time of formulating the strategy, the appetite to take on many projects, and then we test that, whether the appetite remains the same, the urgency remains the same at the time of execution. So you can then have a good analysis, but also at the time of formulation, do we take time to do a risk assessment, or we simply assume the environment and all factors remain in our favor, and then we just hit the unknown, the unexpected, and we get surprises which shouldn't have been in the first place. But otherwise, thank you so much, Ted, for these data sets. So the survey, I think, is very comprehensive. What you've done. We've had discussions with you before, so if you can build on what you started, I think we'll have very good data sets that we can use in future. So thank you.
Yes, it would be great. And thank you all. Rob, Laura, and Daniel, thank you so much for participating. I encourage everyone to download the report, give us feedback so we can keep improving the data set and research around it. So thank you all.
Much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Happy reporting.
All right.